Right?
That's the greatest thing about this industry is that it never stops. You're always learning. It's changing. It's changing a lot. We're kind of, in my mind, we're kind of in a renaissance of this where, technology is really coming in. And I think that's coming in because for so long, it's been the older guys that were so adverse to any kind of technology. We had superintendents back then, even not that long ago, who didn't know how to use their email and all that stuff. And I don't even know how you could even do this. I can't fathom how you can run a job without email and your cell phone. And guys, 20 years ago, we didn't have all that stuff, but we somehow got buildings built.
Have you ever wondered how successful architecture, engineering, and construction companies scale their business?
Or have you ever wanted guidance on how to get more growth, wealth, and freedom from your AEC company?
Well, then you're in luck. Hi, I'm Will Forat.
And I'm Justin Nagel, and we're your podcast hosts.
We interview successful AEC business leaders to learn how they use people, process, and technology to scale their businesses.
So sit back and get ready to learn from the industry's best. This is Building Scale.
Hey listeners, it's Will here. Our mission is to help the AEC industry protect itself by making technology easy. If you've ever listened to our show, then you know that the three pillars of scaling a business are people, process, and technology. So if you suspect technology is your weak link, then book a call with us to see where we can help maximize your company's IT and cybersecurity strategy. Just go to buildingscale.net/help.
Today's guest is Jeff Falls, the COO of Haley Construction, one of Arizona's oldest and most respected general contractors. Haley Construction has been family-owned and operating since 1955, completing more than 2,500 projects across Prescott, Yavapai County. I'm going to pronounce that correctly. Jeff, you can correct me later. And Northern Arizona. The firm specializes in commercial and luxury residential construction, historic rehabilitation, and wide range of projects, including municipal, educational, medical, and green buildings. Jeff's career began with construction at a young age through his family's home building work. And after a decade of graphic design, he returned to the industry full-time. And since 2011, he's worked as a superintendent, project manager, and estimator, and now leads client relations, business development, and marketing. Haley Construction is known for innovative custom solutions and delivering projects that exceed expectations through strong relationships and integrity. And with all that said, Jeff, welcome to the show.
Wow, that was quite an intro there. Yeah, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
I want to pull back the curtain a little bit. You didn't send me a ton, so there was more research I had to do for the intro. So I hope that was all accurate. Also, how do you pronounce that county the right way? I feel embarrassed. Yavapai County. Yeah, I thought I was there. I was generally there. So I said all these nice things, but you tell us the real story. What's your background? What does that look like? How did you get into construction? And then tell us about Haley.
I kind of grew up in this business. My dad was a general contractor, home builder. Mostly did spec homes. He kept it pretty small. That was his business model. He did a few homes a year. And I was just, I don't know if forced is the right word, but I didn't have much of a choice. Let's put it that way. So I was digging ditches and, putting on H25s and when other kids were getting a bike for Christmas, I was getting a skill saw. So that's kind of how I started. And I did it off and on all the way through up until high school. And then even in college, in summers and stuff like that, I continued to do that with him. And like you said, I kind of detoured, went into the graphic design world, and I guess burned out on that. I'm a type of person that I keep always pushing forward. So I pushed as far forward as I thought I could go, and I burned myself out. So I went back to construction and realized I should have never left, and this is where I belong. So been doing it again ever since, and here I am now, COO of Haley Construction, somehow.
Did you ever learn to ride a bike? Maybe that's a good question. You know how to use a skill saw, I'm sure.
Yeah, I could ride the crap out of a bike too, so.
So look you didn't miss any steps then as childhood. That's awesome. So tell us more about Haley. Why is it special? Why did you go there, and why did you feel like that was the place that you wanted to really make change?
When I went back to construction and was working with my dad, things kind of slowed down a little bit. I got hired by another general in the Payson, Arizona area just to help put siding on a couple big custom homes. He needed somebody that could do that for him. So next thing I know, I'm there. I ended up working for him more than full time. We decided that it would be better to raise our family over here. We had some friends who lived in this part of the state, so we uprooted, came over here. I got a job with another local commercial builder over here. Worked with him for 8 years, and then as things kind of after the big smash of 2008, the economy went down. He decided he'd done very well for himself, and it was time for him to shut down. And of course, that doesn't work for me. I had known of Haley Construction for quite a while. The second generation owners, I'd been around them here and there, and they reached out to me. They knew that my other employer was leaving, and they had a place for me, and they were looking to expand at the time. Even though the economy was not great up here, they were looking to expand. So they brought me in, and I was pleasantly surprised at how well I fit here. Now I've been here for 14, going on 15 years now.
Yeah. So something about the culture.
Construction to be anywhere.
Something about the culture got you stuck though. What was that? When you got there, you said, "Oh, the fit was, almost like a glove," right? So
yeah.
What was?
Gosh, I don't know if I could put my finger on it. It's just a family kind of thing. I think I just fit. They were what I needed, and I was what they needed. As things have progressed, I've moved up. I've helped, been a part of, sustaining or building the culture here too. So, I mean, tell a lot of people this, I'm a small part of this company, but this company is a big part of me. I don't know if I could put my finger on why. It's can't see myself ever leaving here.
Well, that's a good sign. I'm sure I don't know
who else would
happy to hear.
I don't know who else would put up with me, but
well, that means that really goes to building an amazing team, right? Building an amazing team is a piece of that.
Yeah, and we
why don't you talk about that?
We have a great team right now, and we're at a point right now. I mean, we're small by most standards. By any matrix, we're pretty small. 17 employees, but by our measure, we're as big as we've ever been. We now have 2 project managers. We have an estimator. We have, I guess 6 or 7 superintendents. I think we have 7 superintendents. We're at 7 now. And that's a lot for us. When they hired me, we had 2 superintendents, and I was the second one. So, and the project manager was also the owner. And even as we moved into the 3rd generation of the company, when Alan Prairie and Jillian Haley took over, they were the driving force, and I was still a superintendent and kind of working my way into it. But yeah, now, and we brought all these great people on, and the future's bright for us right now.
So hiring people, let's talk a little bit about hiring process. Because you started with 2. Did you figure out, was it easy for you to hire other supers, or no? Okay, why don't you talk a little bit about that? There's some learning lessons there.
Yeah, we have a really small work pool here. Anyone with talent already has a job, so it's really difficult to find. We've been real lucky. I mean, luck has been a huge part of it. We had our CFO decided to retire about, I think it's been 3 years ago now, and we were like, what are we going to do? Where do you just find a CFO? You don't just, you don't put an ad on Craigslist for a CFO. We know everybody up here. No one that has those kind of skills that we know is looking for a job. And we had this guy walk in the door, that was semi-retired and looking to come out of retirement, and had this huge experience of being a CFO for other major construction companies, and just wanted to work for a couple more years, and brought him in. And then somebody else came behind him, and now we've got this wonderful person working in that department. And same with our 2 PMs. They just kind of surfaced and found them. the superintendents has kind of been the same thing. One guy I found on LinkedIn, and from what I could see about him, he was a perfect fit. And he's like, well, I don't think I'd fit. I don't have the experience you're looking for, and blah, blah, blah. And I kept kind of pushing him, and he fits like a glove, and he's doing great, and so it's like I almost have to go out and seek these people out and yank them over to get them here. I, there's really not, there's a few other commercial contractors up here. They have one or two superintendents, and those guys aren't leaving. They're not going to come over here, so we have this real, like I said, this really small pool to draw from. So, and it's hard to bring somebody up from Phoenix. Hey, sell your home in Phoenix and then come buy one up here that costs another 100,000 more, and we'll pay you the same amount you were making in Phoenix. So do that math. So it's a difficult thing. 56% of our population is retirement age. So that kind of tells you the other, 44% is where we got to draw from. And you can imagine how big the amount of superintendents are of that 44%.
Yeah, quite the disadvantage, unless you're literally pulling people out of retirement, which apparently there's a little bit of that.
Yeah, it's kind of happened. Even the gentleman who's doing estimating for us right now, I pulled him out of retirement. The previous contractor I worked at, he was me. He was the VP at that contractor. Ran into each other at a mutual friend's wedding and got to talking, and I kept feeding him drinks, and next thing I know, he's doing estimating for me.
Well, that's always an easy path forward, feeding people drinks. At least certainly I've experienced that in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously hard to get people, but then also the right people, right? Because it's not just you have a skill set and now you're it.
Yeah.
What is your experience with that? Where it's like, we found somebody to be a supervisor or whatever position, but like maybe that you weren't the right fit. Maybe we pulled the trigger a little too early.
And that happens. And it's hard. You know what you need to do, but it makes it harder when you're like, oh, shit, what am I going to do if I cut this guy loose? Is it better to have somebody there just on the job, go looking again? Really, in your heart of hearts, you have to cut him loose. And we've had to do that a couple of times, and it's turned out for the better.
So you're saying it's better to have less people than the wrong people. So do you have any stories behind that?
Without throwing anybody in the bus, we had a guy working on a job, remote. Things weren't quite going as I thought they should be going, and I would notice that I would call him about a question or something, and he'd say, yeah, I'll get right back to you. Then he'd call me a little bit later with the answer. And what I figured out is that he was at home, and he would call whoever he had working out there and ask the question to them, and then they would. So I was out there one day, and he wasn't there, and called him, pretended like I was needing a question answered, and watched it happen in front of me. And that was it for that. But it did put us in a position. Here we are with it. It was a really unique residential project, and it was actually the project that got us through COVID, because if you guys remember, commercial construction had to shut down. We had one residential project going, and at the time we had 3 superintendents only, and the other 2 were busy, and I couldn't really put them out there, and it was remote, and had another guy apply, and he lived close by to there, and that was the whole reason I hired him, was because he lived close by. And he ended up finishing the job and doing great, but it was more of just I needed somebody to be out there. Would I've probably hired that guy in the long run? No. I put myself in that position because I couldn't have nobody there.
So greater risk than not having anybody there.
Yeah. I couldn't do it. There's no way I could be, 30 miles out of town, I can't be in 10 places at once, and can't even be in 2 apparently. But somebody, we had to put somebody who knew something and then could at least open the gate on time. And
I always think those scenarios fall into an ego problem. Like you think like, oh, I'm just going to not be the place I need to be, right? And I'm just going to work my magic in the way, whatever I need to do.
Yeah, I get caught in that. I get caught in that a lot.
Yeah.
I've got a job right now that's just a small little job, and I was like, well, I'll just do this, this, and this, and then I get sick. So now I've had to lean on one of my other guys. It's like, hey, can you go by there? And then I'm trying to do it over the phone with him, and it's luckily it's just a small job for a really good client. Yeah,
Makes it hard. Makes
it
that
hard.
difficult.
Yeah.
So how do you try to avoid those scenarios? Like, what are ways that you avoid the putting, because this is the thing with growth, right? It's like you have to stretch, right? Like to grow, to get more resources, to then provide more people or more resources to jobs.
Yeah.
But you can only do that if you stretch, and stretching requires risk, because it's like, well, I can't, if I do get sick, or if, God forbid something happens to one of my team or somebody on my team, like that becomes a problem. So how do you handle, or how do you navigate, maybe is a better word, through that process as y'all continue to grow?
Like I said, our team right now, we have some really skilled superintendents that have mostly come up through the trades and understand things, and can, even if it's not their project, they can at least solve the problem if necessary. So we're lucky in that respect that they have the right mindset, that they know that, sometimes we have to do that. Sometimes we just have to pick up the slack for other people, especially when you're a small company like us. So we do what we have to do. I mean, that superintendent, I asked him for help, and he's like, no problem, I got you. And he's over there right away, and he's sorting stuff out and getting it going. And it's great that I can lean on him like that. I will say that that particular superintendent has worked for us most of his life, started as a laborer for us, and he's just a great, I'd say young man. He's not a totally young man, but he's, from where I had him life, he's a young man. So he's loyal to me, I think, and vice versa. And I think he'll do whatever I ask him to do. So I appreciate that from our people. We have a few people like that.
That's awesome.
So sounds like multiple people wearing multiple hats, which means you got to keep this plate spinning.
Yeah.
How do you do that? How do you balance?
I have no idea. I do this, and I get here in the morning at 7 o'clock. I do this and this. I get here in the morning at like 5 o'clock. I don't leave here till 5:30-ish. It's I don't know. I just apply the same skills I did, when I was a superintendent or whatever I was. And, I know that we just got to keep all these plates spinning, or, you got your pots on the stove that are all doing a different thing, and you kind of just got to keep moving them around, and it just works. I don't know if I could even write it down to say, this is how you do it. This is how I think even in our situation, I was COO 4 years ago, and we didn't have any project manager. So I was COO and project manager and estimator and backup superintendent and that's the toughest question I've had. I don't know the answer to that. I really wish I had. That's going to ruin your podcast.
Not at all. No. Being real and authentic is what it's about, right? Because it is hard.
I don't know the answer to that.
So you shifting, because like you'd say, oh well, you're not that. You don't have to do all those hats anymore. But now you have new hats. You have more ops hats, BD hats, marketing hats, all those things. How has the transition been? Because you were, before you started in the field and doing all that stuff. How is the transition to be more, and not that you don't ever go to the field, but how has it been now that you are less that in the field person and more, hey, I do office stuff as well?
I miss the field a lot, to be honest with you. I miss it from way back. I miss rolling trusses. I miss framing walls. I miss pouring concrete. I miss all that stuff that I used to do. I mean, I was telling you, when I was at the builder in Payson, when I was just hired to do siding on 2 houses, that's what I was going to do. And the next thing I know, I'm running his framing crew and his concrete crew. And, I don't even know how that happened. It just happens. And I was blessed or cursed or whatever you want to call it with this work.
A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
Yeah, with this work ethic, and I just want to get things done. So I think that's just how it is. But I miss the field a lot. I miss, even as a superintendent, I miss that immediate problem solving stuff. I crave it sometimes, even just to be doing that again. But I have a whole new set of problems that I have to solve every day here too. So
yeah, the shift from that, they're just very different, right? It's still solving problems, right? You're still at the root of it. It's always, business is always just like, I gotta solve the next problem. And me and Will talk about this a ton, where it's like, we thought we solved the problems, and it's like, you did solve those, and now here's 12 others that you have to figure out, and they're very different, and they're the same answers from the past don't solve these problems. So start from the beginning to do that. So we've seen that a ton.
And I try to pass that knowledge. That's knowledge you don't even realize you have. You've done it so many times that you don't even realize that you know the answers to these questions, like you just know them. Mm-hmm. So I try to impart that knowledge on our other superintendents, and hopefully they see that I do know what I'm talking about. Sometimes I wonder when they roll their eyes at me and stuff. But I was just thinking thinking about that. I mean, I know these guys, some of these other guys in other trades that are still there at those trades or have kind of moved around in town a little bit. And I've known these guys for 20 some odd years. Sorry about that. It's like, I miss seeing those guys every day. It was like, you're on a job with some of these guys, you're seeing them for a few weeks at a time every day for 3-4 weeks. And then the other next guy came on and you were hanging out with him for 3 or 4 weeks. So I kind of miss that. And I talk about that with those guys sometimes. We talk about how, I haven't seen you in forever. We're all still around. Now, I don't know if I got off topic there a little bit, but I was getting a little nostalgic there.
No, it's okay. So it's essentially lessons that you teach those now. What are some of the lessons, or maybe what's like the hardest lesson that you had to go through and learn?
I'm still learning.
Always learning. You should always be learning.
That's the greatest thing about this industry is that it never stops. You're always learning. It's changing. It's changing a lot. We're kind of, in my mind, we're kind of in a renaissance of this where, technology is really coming in. And I think that's coming in because for so long it's been the older guys that were so adverse to any kind of technology. We had superintendents back then, even not that long ago, who didn't know how to use their email and all that stuff. And I don't even know how you could even do this. I can't fathom how you can run a job without email and your cell phone. And guys, 20 years ago, we didn't have all that stuff, but we somehow got buildings built. But today, we've got this newer, the AI stuff and all these other things that are coming in. I think it's really exciting to see what's happening with this industry.
Technology, yeah. I mean, obviously, it's me and Will at Spot. We love technology. That's literally what we do, right? How can we help with technology when it comes to construction? We see it as just like other businesses where it's like you need so much of it, and if you didn't, we always say it's like technology is not that important. It's like, okay, then turn all of yours off and see how well you do your job, or how well you pay people, how well you get new bids out, how well, like all of the functions that require, because it's just such a integral part of the construction business now. And maybe 20 years ago, 30 years ago, not as much. But today, I agree with you. I couldn't imagine a way you would operate the business without it.
Even just being able to send text messages. I mean, I used to think texting was the silliest thing, and now I'm like some 12-year-old girl the way I'm texting all the time. So, yeah. It's. I think it's exciting to see.
So, tell us a little bit about what's unique about Haley's process.
About our process? Which of our processes?
Ooh.
Okay, so you got more than one.
Well, I mean, we have, I don't know that we have more than one. This is something we're kind of working on because we really have never had the need for processes. Like I've mentioned before, when I came into this company, the owner of the company was also the PM and the owner and made all the decisions. So there was an easy transition of power. You knew who to answer to. And now it's a little different. Now we have a PM, we have a superintendent, we have me, and, we have an owner. And so there's a longer chain of command there, I guess. And that's really, I mean, we have a small labor pool too, but really for us, it's owner, PM, superintendent. And then you have, our financial side, which is kind of its own thing. But we've been kind of developing these processes as we go, and like I said before, we didn't really need them. They just did it how they did it, and we never kind of had we get this question from our people. It's like, well, what's our process for doing this? And we're like, just do it. So that's kind of what I was trying to kind of skirt that question a little bit, because our processes aren't really that developed. A lot of our, like, if you talk about how do we get jobs, that process, how do we run a job is kind of a process. We've kind of designed our company around, we work with, unlike some of the other builders up here, we work with some pretty big architects. I mean, that comes through our school stuff that we do for the colleges and stuff. So we end up working with these large architects who demand a certain amount of paperwork and follow through and all that stuff. So we've kind of patterned ourselves in that manner. And then that now kind of translates through to how we run we only do a couple luxury kind of residential things a year. So that we use that same process for that. And it's, for us, it works really well, with all the submittals and all the RFIs, and we run everything through Procore. And then I'm pretty sure there's no other home builders up here doing that.
Home builder through Procore? No, I don't. That's not a thing.
But that's how we do it. That works for us, and we're all about documenting everything. So because we have to, and we can't have two different ways of doing it. It doesn't work. Our safety stuff's the same way. On our residential projects, those guys, they better be, dressed with the same PPE as they would be on our commercial projects. I promise you, not many home builders up here are doing that either. And that's what kind of prices us out too of a lot of the residential stuff. And we really don't pursue that stuff very much. And we're upfront about that too. When somebody calls in wanting a house, we kind of let them know that, okay, look, this is the normal stuff we do, and this is the stuff that's involved in our process. And it's things will make your experience better, but it's also going to add to the cost. And so they have to weigh those two things as far as, because a lot of these times these people have built a house before, and halfway through the general contractor disappears and ghosts them and won't answer questions, and they never see them, and then all of a sudden the house is sitting, and that's a common thing, and doesn't happen with us. But people have to understand that those two things, they come with a price too.
I think that's it's actually a good lesson, because obviously price is always going to be a component in decision making, right? So hey, we want to build a building, if it's a residential or if it's commercial, we want to build a building, and price is going to be a component to that. But the value that you're getting out of that also needs to be taken into consideration. And if it's, the risk for a home builder, the risk that this GC disappears on me is whatever, 10%, whatever it is, that is huge. Like, that's a massive risk of dollars. So even though, hey, it's not as expensive, but it's like, but how much risk are you willing to take on as the owner of that home?
And the fact that we've been around for 70 years, there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
Things like what we're doing now is why we'll still be here. I doubt I'll be here still, but 70 years from now, we'll still be here. We'll be on.
Well, with that work ethic, I assume you'll still be there 70 years from now. That's just your mission in life almost.
Yeah, pretty much for me, I might be. I'll be propped up in the corner with a broom. We joke about this a lot, so.
I used to say, or my family used to say that about my grandmother, because she's going to live forever. That's our belief, certainly. And we said, oh yeah, we're just going to make you an animatronic. So at Christmas time, you can, yell at us still. I can do the whole thing. Yeah, exactly.
Sorry for the coughing, but I start to laugh. The cold is still lingering a little bit.
Yeah, no worries. I completely understand. It's that time of the year. So, one component is obviously you're up north in northern Arizona. You have some builders, more local builders that are also around you, but then also you compete with the big dogs, the big national construction companies. What's the advantage with Haley? Like, why choose y'all instead of one of the big names, essentially?
I think with us, man, probably going to ruffle some feathers with this, but
ruffle away.
Yeah. you know what you're getting. You're going to get an owner who's involved. You have full access to her. If you have a problem, you can call Jillian. Jillian Haley's the owner of the company. You can call her and she'll call you back. And I don't think you can do that with some of the larger ones. Maybe they're hard to. I haven't never figured out this, but those big guys are hard to compete with on price sometimes, and I can't figure that part out because they have way more overhead than I do. Yet somehow they manage to be pretty competitive on price. I don't know if it's just on volume or they really want something, they'll push you out of it, or I don't know. It's just it's a burr in my side up here because there's some really quality commercial guys up here that can build anything that these guys are coming up here to build. A lot of it we don't ever get the shot at because no one knows we exist. It's tough making that getting known. Even though we've been around 70 years, if you Google who's the best contractor in Arizona, you're going to get somebody like McCarthy's going to pop up because they're in Arizona, but even though they're not an Arizona company, and I didn't mean to throw them out there under the bus, but
they're the big dogs. Everyone knows them,
they're
right?
Huge. They're huge, and they do great stuff. I can't compete with the stuff they do. As far as they can do jobs that I can't even go after. But, I wish they didn't go after the ones that I can go after too.
Also,
I've beat them a few times, and I'm pretty proud of that kind of stuff. And they it doesn't matter to them. It's just I hold on to it as like a little but to them it's just bumped in the road, and they keep going.
One other component that y'all are more construction management, right? In comparison to traditional GC.
We don't self-perform very much.
Why is that the decision? Like why run the business that way in comparison to more of a traditional
It
GC
goes back
approach?
to that work pool kind of thing. Just finding enough guys that can, if I had to, do my own concrete or something like that, I mean, I don't know where I would find those guys. The good ones already have jobs, and I'm not going to be able to lure them away unless I pay them a big check, and then I got to keep feeding that machine of finding more work for them constantly, because that's all they're going to want to do is do concrete. They're not going to want to frame walls or hang doors or any of that stuff. A lot of our superintendents can multitask some of that stuff that gets missed. If I need to do a little bit of concrete, or if I need to put a window in or hang doors, door hardware, that kind of stuff. For the most part, we sub everything out, even though we have a labor crew of about 4 guys. They're pretty much just doing the things that get missed. They're real helpful when we get to the punch end of the thing, and we can just, all hands on deck, and they're very skilled and they can do pretty much anything. But we've got them doing pretty much everything. You never know what they're going to be doing from day to day. They never know usually until the day before.
So let's talk about delivery methods a little bit more. So CMAR, design build, bid build, JOC. What's your preference? What's your general preference?
We're really good at the CMAR stuff. We've been doing it for a long time. The design bid build stuff's fine. I hate the whole racing to the bottom just to get a job. It's part of it. We're starting to do a little more design build. I wish we could develop that a little bit more. I have a meeting tomorrow for a possible design build project, so I'm hoping that we've done a couple. They've been okay. It's been a learning process, and until we kind of get it all figured out, again, going back to the processes, we don't really have a really good process for that yet. And then the JOC stuff I really like, as long as they're not too big. We got into that through Yavapai College, and really, really like those. And they're kind of a win and lose. You'll make money on some and you'll kind of break even on some others, but in the end, it turns out pretty good, and it keeps us busy.
So where does Haley want to be in the next 5 years?
Let's see, we're running about, well, if we're talking revenue, I'd like it by the end of the 5 years, we'd be doing about 20+ million. My goal, when I kind of moved into the PM side of this, I told them that my goal would be to get us into the 10. We were running about 8 million a year back then. And my goal was to get us into about the 10, 12-ish range. We're running about 14 now. So we're kind of ready to make that next move up. We have to all that helps with, increasing our bonding. Or we've really been, one of the things we've really been working on and really helped is increasing our bonding capacity. We've really been working hard on that and got that up. That's been growing really well. And that helps us a lot. All these college stuff have to be bonded because they're all typically like a government project in a way. None are not a real government project, but it's all bonded work. So as we can increase our bonding capacity, we can take on more projects at the same time. So, and we've been working hard on that and done a really good job on that. But that's where I'd like to see us as far as revenue goes. Size wise, we're in our original office here, which the company started in, 65 years ago. They came to Prescott in 1960. So it's kind of tight. It's kind of small. So we're looking at, in 5 years, we're going to be in a whole new building, maybe with 4 project managers running. By then we're going to need about 14, I would say, superintendents to get to that 20 million revenue part. It's kind of what I don't know. I've never been a COO of anything. I'm just giving you what my extrapolated experience would be.
Well, you've been a COO at Haley, so that's true.
Yeah, for 3, 4. I don't even know how long. I really don't. It's probably the cold medicine, but I'm not sure how many years I've been the COO. I think it's 3. Not sure.
All right. So one thing that we find pretty common is people that utilize either consultants, coaching, mentorship, all those kind of things. What does that look like for you?
Personally?
Well, personally, professionally, however you want to throw it out there.
Personally, we're very big. Well, just, we'll go with the training side of it. We're really big on training through the ABA, and Small Giants has its Center for Construction Excellence. I'm probably messing up the name on that. That both of those entities we use them a lot for training, and they're great. And we try to, we offer that to all of our people. We pay for everything, just go do it. And most of them take pretty good advantage of that. Mentorship, this is a tough one for me. I don't see myself as a mentor, but I guess in some sense I have to be somewhere. I try to, guide these guys like I would do things. Maybe that's not even the right way, but that's, it got me here. As far as mentors for myself, I have a few, and I lean on them quite a bit, probably more than I should. They probably get tired of me calling them for, what?
That's what mentors are for. They're there to answer your question.
And one of them in particular, he started here at Haley the same time I did. He was kind of semi-retired, he'd come from Vegas, so he was used to the real world stuff. Him and I we were like, still, I talk to him once a week and vent to him when I have to, and miss seeing him every day and miss having him to bounce stuff off of. But he's been my biggest mentor. And then I have others that probably don't even know it, but they are. And a lot of guys that I've worked with over the years have helped shape me.
All right. That makes sense. What about technology? What are you using with technology? Obviously, we talked about a little bit like how important it is. What are those things that you're using currently?
Well, for our project management, we're using Procore. We've found nothing. It's not the greatest, but it's, in my opinion, the best available. It works really well for us. We have a couple people in the office that are pretty handy with it. All of our superintendents are, they all have a tablet and a laptop and all that stuff. And we're starting to dip into the AI stuff and working with it through Bluebeam, and it kind of is helpful for takeoffs and stuff like that, even though it's more helpful. Most of our takeoffs are just kind of to double check when we get an estimate in from a trade partner. We kind of want to double check that, they have everything covered. And that's, there's 35 doors and that kind of stuff. It's easier just to have AI count all those doors and all that stuff. We're still in the infancy with that, though. We're little babies with that. And we've used it for some proposal stuff and things like that. I'm a little bit still sketchy on it because I think you're going to start seeing, as all these proposals come in, they're all going to kind of sound the same if the owners are all reading them. There's going to be a lot of similarities. Their technology, I don't know. Right now I'm looking into some new scheduling software. If you guys have any tips on that, I'd kind of like to get away from Microsoft's project a little bit. It's great, but it's almost too much. I'd like to have something that was more simple and everybody could kind of be more interactive with in real time. That'd be cool, especially if the PM and the super can kind of both be working on it, and that would also be compatible with Procore, because Procore doesn't, you have to download something into Procore. It doesn't have its own, they keep saying they're going to do one, but they never do. So Procore's
I've heard that one for like the last 4 years or something like that.
If you're listening, Mr. Procore, you should do that because it would make my life easier. I'm sure that's the number one priority on his list. Other technology stuff, really. That's about it for technology. Yeah.
All right. That's totally good. So we love to ask one question to every guest that we have on the show. And if you've listened to any episodes, you should know what that is. But if for our listeners that this is the first time they're listening, we always ask, if you could go back 20 years, Jeff, what advice would you give yourself? So this would be 2006 is when the episode will be released. 2026, so 2006 would be 20 years ago.
2006. I lived here, so gosh, it's a good one. I think it's pay more attention. I was working really hard back then. We had just moved here. I was maybe a little bit cocky back then because I was a lot younger, but I had little kids and I had a lot of pressure on me. So I was working really hard, and wish I'd have paid more attention back then to what other guys were telling me. Might have learned a little more. Maybe learned it a little bit easier than having to learn it the hard way all the time.
It's good advice. That's literally why we have the podcast. How can we help others learn from other people, right? Like that's the whole concept.
I know I was going, so I've been, kind of laid up for the last couple of days, and I was going through the podcast, and I was like, man, I don't compare it with any of these people you guys have been talking to. That made me real nervous today.
Don't need to be nervous. Your perspective is important, right? Like that's, to us, it's significantly more than we do because you live it every day. And even if you are not the cocky young person and you're much more of a humble human being at this point, that's a good thing. That's a good quality to have, at least in my opinion.
You have to learn it. You have to learn it and practice it every day.
Yeah, for sure. This has been a ton of fun. If somebody wanted to get a hold of you, Jeff, what's the best way for them to do that?
You can call me. Phone number is 928-445-1281, or you can email me at jeff@haleyaz.com.
Awesome. I'll throw that all in the show notes. And is there anything else you'd like to tell the people before we say our goodbyes?
Plan. If you're doing any kind of project, plan.
Love it. Great advice. All right, listeners, I hope you had as good of a time as me and Will did. And until next time, adios.
Adios.
See you guys.
Thanks for listening to Building Scale. To help us reach even more people, please share this episode with a friend, a colleague, or on social media.
Remember, the 3 pillars of scaling a business are people, process, and technology.
And our mission is to help the AEC industry protect itself by making technology easy.
So if you think your company's technology pillar could use some improvement, book a call with us to see how we can help maximize your IT and cybersecurity strategy. Just go to buildingscale.net/help.
And until next time,
keep building scale.